I know it was a big move, but you know, because we shacked up. So we literally, so again, and I know that I'm talking about my age, but again, as a 50-year-old woman of white privilege, and Angela very close to that, I won't tell you how old, we have to go, I didn't say anything younger than me, we have to go around in the neighborhoods and try and determine where we were going to live, I kid you not, even in the area of Madison. Because we had to do that when we moved into Fitchburg. I'm happy to say our lovely neighbor from Fitchburg is here. Kristen is right here. And that is a big deal. I don't know if you know this about me. What's that? Nicole. I know, get that. And so I am not shy. I don't know if you didn't get that yet. And so I purposely will go and meet the neighbors first so that they don't make an assumption, because you know what that does about me and us. And I will say my wife and I to see what their reaction is going to be. We did that before we bought the houses, walking the dog, etc. So I'm happy to say that Fitchburg worked out for us. And Nicole, can you wait for a second? There's Nicole. She's our current neighbor right now. And the best thing that I can tell you about Nicole, this wasn't in her yard, but after reading one of my blogs, Nicole put up a rainbow flag in her yard to teach her teenage boys how to be an ally. Can we have a round of applause? That's how you show where people are welcome. We want you to shift from being a small A ally to a capital A ally. I'm glad you're asking, what is a small A ally? I was just going to see if anyone. Okay. So a small A ally is someone who may be in a break room, who may be in a family gathering. And for our purposes, you may hear a homophobic joke or a slur. A small A ally doesn't say anything. It may bother you, it may curdle your blood, but you don't say anything. Now, I'm not passing judgment. I have been there, okay? I grew up with Archie Bunker as my father. And so it was very, very difficult, didn't want to get into the fight. That is a small A ally. With everything that you're going to learn today, and a lot you already know, you can become a capital A ally, and we're going to talk about how that works. I think I need to come over here. Am I getting feedback? I'm so sorry, friends. Right there. Lori Gibson, I'm going to talk about you in a second. So, in addition to my friend Nicole, who is our neighbor, who put up a rainbow to show that she was an ally, Lori Gibson, can you wave your hand for me, please? Lori Gibson, hi. And this actually makes my TED Talk, too. Lori Gibson, after reading about how to become an ally from my weekly blog that I had just started, wore a rainbow ribbon on her lanyard. I'm going to condense it just for time.
It's fine.
So Lori was onboarding some new staff. Some new staff saw that Lori had a rainbow ribbon on her lanyard and thanked Lori after the presentation for being an open and safe person. Can we have a round of applause for Lori? And when Lori texted us that story, I started crying. Angela started crying, because that's all you need to do, and that was fantastic. So thank you for that. That's how we shift people's perceptions. Another way is perhaps raise your hand if you would like to. You don't have to, but I know some of you may have pronouns in your signature line. I'll just raise my hand that I do. This is another way, and especially folks who are younger than me may be identifying themselves as well. So this is going to be important, especially as you hire people or working with people or whatever it might be, that they might have these different pronouns in their signature line. On my email, I have my she, her, hers pronouns listed. I also have what's this highlighted next to it, so that people who don't know can go ahead and click on that link, and then it takes you to explain what that is. So sometimes people are afraid to ask me, but that would be something that you could do. You do not have to by any stretch. But when you see this about, you'll see a lot in the Madison area, that's what it is. So checking your privilege. I'm read a couple of ideas for you. You do not have to raise your hand or anything like this. But when we think about the purchasing power, when we think about creating a safe culture, inclusion, not having microaggressions, those kind of things, privilege comes into that. So, you do not have to raise your hand, but just think about this. I can count on my coworkers wanting to include me in their conversations. Now this could be, sure, you're talking about work, but do they ask about the weekends? Do they ask about your family? Do they assume that you have a spouse? Do they assume you have children if you don't? I can display photographs of my family or my personal life without worrying that it will invite negative perceptions. I never had a picture of Angela and me as a middle school counselor in my office because I never wanted to answer the question until that student came into my office and said, "This is what it's like for me." So then I changed things so that I could talk about my wife. I can count on looking at the top level of management in my organization and seeing people more than just a token individual who belong to my identity, gender, race, age, sexual orientation, religion, or disability status. So those are just some things that you can think about. I am going to send you these resources later on. For the sake of time, we're going to keep moving on. Another thing to think about with privilege is maybe if you take a look at this, some of you in this room, if we have to have the talk, we can. And good, for those of you in the back, you're taking a look at it too, okay? So, my idea, when my mother taught me about sex education, it was throwing pamphlets on the bed and she said, "Here." That was it. And I knew growing up that it wasn't an option of being gay. I was either going to marry a pig farmer or a dairy farmer. So they didn't sit down, true story, they didn't sit down with me and say, "Okay, do you know that you're straight?" Which I wasn't until my sister told me. But just think about this, right? Doesn't this kind of play with your mind a little bit? And the privilege, What did your parents think about the fact that you're straight? The number one thing that I get asked in the 20 states that I've spoken and being a middle school counselor for as long as I have is, "Lisa, what do I say? I want to be an ally. I want to help. What can I say?" So, the collective wisdom that's in this room, we're going to find out what are some of the things that you have found that are helpful to say to someone. Now, I talked about the homophobic joke, I've talked about the memes, and again, maybe it's going to be something that you've heard or something that you want to stop saying. It's me. I'm going to break you into, let's try groups of 3. If you do more than that, that's okay. Make some new friends if you want to. If you want to stand up and get more pizza and more cupcakes, you can do that as well, but please don't leave, please come back. And what do you say when you hear these things? Does that make sense? Yes? What's that? Which things? It could be, thank you for asking that friend named
Chris.
Hi Chris, I'm Lisa. Nice to meet you. So in your group of 3, it can be, here's what I've heard. Here's what I'd like to say, you are a big jerk, you need to shut up. What do you say instead of that? So if that's what you say to them and that's your culture, you're going to judge, okay, a little. But we're going to come together and say, what kind of things can we say? Okay? So the example would be, "Sir, can I help you?" "Hi, I'm a girl and I have short hair." So that would be an example of how I could break down that barrier. Okay? So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 3 minutes in your group of 3, so that's a minute for each person. Just make some new friends and say, "These are things that I have heard that have been helpful, maybe in breaking down stereotypes or something along those lines." I am kind of leaving it vague on purpose. Okay, so 3 minutes. I'll play my ukulele to get you back. Thank you. The conversations that I heard were fantastic. I know that the collective wisdom in this room is powerful. I don't have all the answers to all of these things. I can give you my experience, but it's not the same as everyone else. Do I have any friends who are willing to share what maybe you talked about or want to put it up for the Nobel Peace Prize? Thank you, friend named
Laura.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Thanks for sharing.
So he had a great example, and sorry, I forgot your name.
Josh.
Josh had a great example that when he travels statewide, and when he goes to some communities, it's maybe not as comfortable to say, my husband and I.
Correct.
And some communities are, I mean, Madison, I think, is pretty open for the most part, but and I'm from up north, so I can definitely tell you they're not. And I use the example of, it's the same thing where whenever I mention my son, and they'll say, your ex-husband, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, we were never married.
Right.
And I feel free to tell everybody. We were never married, it's just my son's father. So it's the same kind of thing where I think it's a good analogy to a lot of things where people just make assumptions because we discussed they like putting things into boxes. It makes people more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Excellent example for both of you. Anyone else have something that they were like, either I heard this or this was just brilliant? Yes, Colleen. Now, I don't have my mic, so can you use your retired teacher voice, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Megan was saying that there's a lot of young people where she works, and that there are somebody who is gay, and that they'll be trust about it. And everybody's how to respond to that. So that was interesting. And we also talked about how as middle school teachers, it's less common to do this, but words like ag and gay be thrown out in the classroom, and just to ways that we would respond to that.
Thank you for sharing that. If you couldn't hear that, so talking about how lots of newer staff, younger staff are making jokes about themselves being gay and or about the gay community, okay? And how do you respond to that? Diane, I'll put you on the spot.
I kind of let them kind of lead where they want it to go.
Mhm.
But I kind of feel like maybe I should have a conversation because they are some of my closer friends at work too. So maybe just have a conversation with them on the side and just say, hey, like, what do you want me to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you, because I don't know if they're making it as like a self-deprecating, like, let's joke about it so no one else jokes about it. Because I do that about my height.
Yeah.
I'm a very short person.
Mhm.
Or if it's that they're just that comfortable and, because they're joking about like them liking other staff members and,
Mhm.
So I just, I think probably one of my next steps is to kind of have conversations with them on how they want me to interact with them about that kind of stuff.
Thank you, Megan. And it's how you approach that person that makes the difference. So again, make sure that, if it's a family member, I'm not going to get into your family business, okay? So you can tell your family what to do. But you're also setting examples for your friends then who read that and their friends. I'm talking about social media, right? And or the small A ally who may or may not say something, but then you don't want, there's a sticky wicket. There's a whole lot that you can get into with that. But thank you for sharing those. And if you talk to anyone and their name is Karen and you call them a Chiron, oh my, that's what this is. This is called a Chiron. And so if you're getting into Zen and yoga and those kind of things, that's what that's called. Okay, so in your bag, you have your index card, and we're talking about your plan right now. And this is where you have your goals, making the barriers, your baggage, those kind of things. I would like you to take a moment right now, and I want you to think about how can you, person writing, shift from being a small A ally to a capital A ally. This is not something that you have to, again, move mountains, but can, hey, I could display a rainbow ribbon. Done. That way I would know that I am an ally. So take 30 seconds. I know it's short, I'm sorry. Take 30 seconds and go ahead and write down. You're going to send this back to me, and then in 30 days I will check in with you to see how your goal is doing. Imagine that the song This Is Me is playing in the background from The Greatest Showman, okay? So I'm going to let you keep writing while I keep going on because I do want to save some time for questions, okay? So again, Greatest Showman, This Is Me. If you haven't listened to that song, it is fabulous, it is affirming, it is wonderful. The third way that you can become an ally, the first was to show that you are an ally. The second is to shift mindsets, perceptions. Now we're going to shape policies and procedures. As you take a look at what is up there, it might be, well, yeah, the back you can see it too. Let's hear from the back and the fun people back there. What do you see? Woohoo, I love that. What do you see on the screen, some friend in the back? Scissors. Good, Stephanie, my yoga instructor from the Y. Anyone else? Namaste, Stephanie. Scissors. What else? The answer is correct. Oh, what's different? Matt, what did you see?
Well, there's obviously one that's more of a safety scissor, and the other one that's more dangerous.
Well done. Yes, Megan, what do you see? Megan read my notes ahead of time. Yes, you did. Megan, without outing you, but I am going to out you, are you left-handed? No, but you knew that that was a left-handed scissors. Yes. So the one on the left is a left-handed scissors. You can tell by the blade that is on top. And the one on the right is a right-handed scissors. And the reason I want to bring this example up is if you would like to identify as such, please raise your hand if you were born left-handed and keep your hand up. All 6 of you, please keep your hands up. If you are still left-handed, all of you are fantastic. Keep your hand up if you are ambidextrous. Hey, Angela's not. So, what I want to show about this, thank you, you can put your hands down, thank you left-handed, lovely, creative people in our world right there. If anyone who was left-handed, you were born that way, you're still that way, you see where I'm going with this? Did anyone try to change you? Yes. The answer is yes here. I have, yes, Laura Hunt, tell us, is someone trying to change your left-handedness?
In school, they would let the righty go, but for sports, I was always handed the wrong baseball and they told to throw with the other hand.
Yep. And back in our day, the spiral notebooks,
Yep.
right, were always, yep, for the majority. So I just wanted to keep that in mind, that as you take a look at it as including more people who are born left-handed, you were born that way. I was born gay. You can't change that. This would be for folks who maybe in your human resources or something along those lines. I know it's difficult to see right now. I can send this resource to you. It is from Callan Lord, which is a mental health provider in New York State. And as I was researching inclusion, I researched inclusionary registration forms. This is what came up. And I love the fact that it gives you a whole lot of options right there. And I know in talking to another friend of mine that when they fill out a registration form and the gender choices are either male, female, or other, I don't know about you, but I would not want to be an other. And so taking a look at this, maybe there's still work to be done on that. But again, as you take a look at all of the different flags that are out there, the more voice that our community has, the more you are going to see this. And so, and I don't have the statistic on when white people become the minority in the United States. It's in soon. Okay, so just know that folks who are identifying not just as male and female, you're going to be working with them. And what a shame to miss out on some fantastic talent just because of a registration form. Or how sad if someone goes home and the insurance doesn't work for them because they couldn't see themselves listed. When we shape our policies, something that's really important to know about is the wide spectrum. In our world, we call it the Kinsey scale, and you can look it up later. I can send you information on it. On the Kinsey scale, not everyone is 100% heterosexual. Sorry to break that to you straight people here. Nor is everyone 100% gay. So I see some puzzled looks, and that's okay. But just know that we are on the spectrum. You know, when I went to college, it was the, I hung out with all the female athletes. Ooh, this is fun. I was a camp counselor. We get touchy-feely at camp. Still had no idea. Come on. So again, somewhere on the spectrum. That's how we're shaping our policies. So taking a look at how do we hear all voices. And I will tell you that I don't think the answer to fitting a status quo is to hire that person that we don't have the voice of, if that makes any sense. Okay? And that's a struggle for me. I'm a 51-year-old woman of white privilege. I want to have everyone represented, but sometimes they're not the best talent. So, think about your benefits that you offer. Do you include, now I know that I'm kind of speaking to human resources folks, but this is something that you can take back to them. Or if we have sole proprietors here, this is something that you can think about as you work with clients. It's very interesting for me as a middle school counselor when I was working with, the boys gave me permission to do this. When I was working with boys who hated school, and they're like, Miss Kennedy, this is stupid. Why do I have to do this? And I was like, well, you need to know that you're going to make more money than I with a master's degree if you go into diesel mechanics. And if you want to go into being a plumber, we need a lot of plumbers. And know that plumber in your business, if I'm gay, I might have money. But plumber who has never met anyone gay, when I call you and you come to my house and I talk about my wife, if plumber, you're going to freak out, you just lost my business, and guess what? I'm going to tell every single gay person I know not to hire you. That's why it's important. I know I went off on the benefits, so let's come back to the benefits. Sorry, tangent on that. Because when I was hired, I had 2 school districts on the same day offer me, and this is in the Madison area, same day, 2 school districts offered me a job as a middle school counselor. One of the school districts said to me, and Lisa, we offer domestic partner benefits. Oh, that's great. I hadn't come out to anyone during the interview process. I hadn't said anything to the human resources director, and what I wanted to say was, do you say that? To absolutely every applicant on the phone, the answer is no. So think about your benefits. And how can you shape your policies toward inclusion? And again, this can be LGBT issues, okay? This could be other things. So think about how you do that. Think about where the purchase of purchasing power again. And so some people want to go all healthy, and where are we going to go with those kind of things? We try to, our politics and our inclusion actually does shape where we shop. Does that make sense? Okay, so their policies you can find out. When I was looking for places to go work, Lakeland University, as well as the school districts I wanted to work at, if sexual orientation was not enumerated out in their policies and or their mission statement, I did not work there. So that's just something else to think about as well. What are your training? What is that like? We're wrapping up here real quick. We're going to take questions and answers, so you're doing great. Stick with me. So, with the training, we have a friend. Her name is Jane. She has a very, very deep voice. When she calls, they will often say to her, yes, sir. That offends her. What is your training like for your frontline people? I work out at the Y, and so when I go there, I want to be welcomed just like every other member. Are your frontline people, receptionists, etc., ready for someone coming in, maybe in a dress with facial hair? In the Madison area, that could happen. Okay? So you just fill in those spots for yourselves right there, just thinking about the training that you had. DCCU is in the house. You're going to get a shout out. Okay, Angela, tell us about DCCU.
Okay, so, hi, this is my wife. So, when I needed to do a transaction, it was a very specific transaction, and not every credit union in the Dane County area had what I needed. So I went to Dane County Credit Union. I sat down with a member service rep, and it was a very complicated transaction. So I was looking around because I was bored and she was typing and whatever. So I'm looking around and I look and there's a big poster next to her desk. And it was a generic, join us, aren't we great, right? Except it was a picture of 2 women at a pride parade. Now to the average person, they would have seen 2 people at a parade, right? 2 women that were having fun. To me, I knew it was a pride parade and I was like, this is my place. Yay, DCCU!
So again, the power. You don't know what that yard sign is going to be. You don't know what that will do for us. So as I wrap up here in a moment, think about baggage that you have that you want to change in your goals. I'm going to give you some writing time right now. Well, actually, I'm going to ask a few questions and answers. There's 10 minutes until 1:15. For those of just hang to, okay, let's start again. This is live. Okay, so in a moment but not yet, what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to again continue to think about maybe the baggage that you had, the goals that you want on your index card, maybe you want help with, maybe you have resources. Again, I'm Lisa Kennedy. I have a lot of information. I can connect you with resources. If it's about LGBT issues, if it's not, I can still try and help you with those things as well. Because you are all lifesavers, you are all allies, because you are here. In 30 days, in a moment we're going to collect your cards from you, and then in 30 days I promise not to creep on you, but I will check in with you to say, hey, how's it going? Do you need any more Vicky's cookies? I mean, anything along those lines, okay? So, if you would like to know what you wrote down, technology probably says you might have a cell phone with you. You can take a picture of your goal and then remember it versus getting something from Lisa from Wisconsin at gmail.com saying, why are you talking to me about this? Because that's the goal. So do feel free to write while I take a couple of questions. Take a picture of that as you show shift and shape. And there is my contact. All right. G-Safe Educator of the Year picture right there. Thank you, Nina Martinez. Imagine that is not witness protection. Okay? And I do have clothes on that is not a pixelation. I mean, okay. Imagine if you didn't see. Okay. So, with that, my friends, I would love to ask a couple if folks have questions about a situation or anything that they'd like to share along those lines. Yes, go ahead.
Some people get asked not just what's your sexuality or your preference or your identity. Sometimes it's a racial thing too, like are you Indian or Hindu?
Mm-hmm.
Are you, and some people get offended by that. And I think your approach sounded great because it is an opportunity to educate, but some people are offended and they go, well, why do you want to know? Now that's one of the common answers I've heard people should say is the first thing to say, well, why do you want to know? Now so I'm throwing that out there, just I don't know, but I like the answers. But sometimes you feel like you don't owe anybody any information, so why are they coming at you with all this?
No, that's a very good question. So the question was, some people may get offended if you ask them questions, whether it's about their identity, it could be sexual identity, it could be racial, whatever it might be. And for me, Lisa Kennedy, how I do that is I might say, help me understand, or I do it especially with names. And so when I see someone's name, because I want to call them the name that they want to be called and how it should be pronounced for them. I don't want to take my privilege and say, oh, that's how it should be said. And so I will ask, so it looks, his name's Max. So I'm going to look at Max's name tag and I say, can you